The air in the Althenia horology boardroom was so thick with tension you could practically hear the ticking of the half-dozen turbillion prototypes in the display cases along the wall. It was a sound that usually soothed CEO Alistair Finch, a rhythmic confirmation of the Swiss precision his family's company had perfected over 150 years. But today, it sounded like a countdown to his own professional execution. Across the polished mahogany table, Marcus Thorne, Althenia's head of global strategy and a man whose veins seemed to run with liquid nitrogen, stared with undisguised contempt. His gaze wasn't on Alistair, but on the young woman standing beside him. Amara Jenkins. Summer intern. 21 years old. And, if Alistair's gut was right, the only person who could save his company. Let me be sure I understand this, Alistair, Marcus began, his voice a low, dangerous hum. We have a room full of venture capitalists, men who manage billions, flying in from Zurich and Hong Kong in 2 hours. They are here to decide if Althenia is worth a $100 million capital injection. And you are proposing that he gestured dismissively at Amara, leads the presentation. Amara stood ramrod straight, her hands clasped behind her back, her expression a carefully constructed mask of neutrality. She had been in this room for 10 weeks, a ghost who fetched coffee, compiled market data, and was occasionally mistaken for the cleaning staff. She was acutely aware of her status as the only one in the room, the only black person, the only one under 30, the only one not wearing a 5-figure timepiece. It was a familiar feeling, a paradox of being simultaneously hypervisible and completely invisible. Alistair adjusted his tie, feeling the collective glare of his executive team. That is correct, Marcus. Amara will be presenting the Vanguard Initiative at .." A wave of incredulous murmurs swept the room. The Vanguard Initiative was Althenia's last-ditch effort to reclaim relevance. For a century, they had been a titan, mentioned in the same breath as Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet. But the market was shifting. The old money clientele was aging, and the new generation of luxury buyers, Gen Z and millennials, were flocking to brands that valued sustainability, digital integration, and authenticity over simple heritage. Althenia's sales had been in a slow, painful decline for 5 years. The $100 million wasn't just for expansion, it was a lifeline. Marcus scoffed. Alistair, with all due respect, this is madness. You're betting the company's future on an intern? She's not ready. She has no track record, no experience. The investors will laugh us out of the room. His words were a slap, but Amara didn't flinch. She had heard variations of that sentiment her entire life. The surprise at her eloquence, the questioning of her credentials, the subtle and not-so-subtle microaggressions that served as a constant reminder that her competence was always up for debate. Studies showed that black women were far more likely to have their judgment questioned in their area of expertise, and she was living proof of that statistic. Alistair held up a hand. Her experience is precisely why she's the one to do this. For the last 6 months, this team has been trying to understand the Gen Z luxury market. You've spent millions on consultants who have produced nothing but jargon-filled reports. In 10 weeks, Amara, on her own initiative, has built a business case that is more insightful, more data-driven, and more compelling than anything I have seen from this entire department. He turned to Amara, his voice softening slightly. Amara, tell them what you told me. This was it. The moment. Amara took a steadying breath, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had spent weeks buried in data, cross-referencing market trend reports with social media analytics, and even running informal focus groups with her university peers. She knew this subject cold. Gentlemen, she began, her voice clear and steady, for the past decade, Althenia has been marketing to a ghost. Our target demographic is a 55-year-old man who inherits his wealth and values exclusivity above all else. That demographic is shrinking. The new luxury buyer, who will account for 75% of the market by 2026, is different. She walked over to the digital display, her movements fluid and confident. She had practiced this in her tiny apartment bedroom 100 times. They are younger, more diverse, and digitally native, she continued, her fingers flying across the screen, pulling up charts and infographics. They don't just want to buy a product, they want to buy into a story, a set of values. They value transparency, sustainability, and brands that are culturally relevant. She paused, letting the information sink in. Our current strategy is to offer the same product with a slightly different dial color and call it innovation. We are speaking a language our future customers don't understand and, frankly, don't respect. Marcus leaned forward. And your solution is what, exactly? To put a QR code on a chronograph? The condescension in his voice was palpable, but Amara met his gaze without wavering. My solution, Mr. Thorne, is the Vanguard Initiative. It's not just a new watch, it's a new ecosystem. For the next 20 minutes, Amara laid out her vision. It was audacious. It was revolutionary. It was everything Althenia was not. The Vanguard wasn't a single watch, but a platform. The core product was a beautifully crafted timepiece with a classic Althenia automatic movement, but made from sustainable and unconventional materials like recycled titanium. The innovation was in its digital twin. Each physical watch would be paired with a blockchain-verified NFT, creating a transparent and immutable record of ownership. This twin would unlock an exclusive digital experience, access to a private community of collectors, invitations to virtual events with the watchmakers, and the ability to customize and trade digital skins for their virtual timepiece. She addressed the market opportunity, the business model, and the competitive landscape, hitting every key point investors look for in a pitch. She explained that this wasn't about abandoning their core clientele, but about building a bridge to the future. It targeted the booming pre-owned market and the desire for personalization that defined the younger generation. The ask, she concluded, facing the stunned executives, is for $100 million. This capital will be allocated to 3 key areas, 40% to R&D and sustainable material sourcing, 35% to building the digital platform and marketing, and 25% to scaling production. This investment will not only stabilize Althenia but position it as the undisputed leader at the intersection of traditional horology and digital innovation, projecting a 5-year revenue growth of 300%. Silence. The only sound was the frantic, almost panicked ticking of the prototypes. Marcus was the first to speak, his voice dripping with sarcasm. An NFT watch. How novel. You want us to go to the most conservative investors on the planet and pitch a video game? I want us to show them we're not a fossil, Amara countered, her voice ringing with passion. I want to show them we understand that luxury is no longer just about what's on your wrist, but about the community you belong to and the values you represent. Companies with more diverse leadership are proven to be more profitable because they understand a wider range of customers. I am your target customer. You've been trying to guess what I want. I'm telling you. Alistair Finch smiled. It was a small, almost imperceptible twitch of his lips, but it was there. He had seen it the first week of her internship. While the other executives saw a quiet intern, he saw a fire in her eyes. He saw the way she didn't just look at the watches, but studied them, deconstructing their history and mechanics with an almost reverent curiosity. He had given her a small research task as a test, and she had come back with a report so thorough it could have been a doctoral thesis. He knew then that she possessed the deep-level diversity, a difference in perspective and problem-solving, that his homogeneous team desperately lacked. He knew the statistics: black women hold only 1.4% of C-suite roles and are consistently overlooked and undersupported. He refused to let Althenia be another company that let that kind of talent walk out the door. The decision is made, Alistair said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Marcus, you and your team will support Amara. Get her whatever she needs. The investors arrive at 2 p.m. The 2 hours that followed were a blur of frantic activity and simmering resentment. Marcus's team provided the requested data with a sullen, uncooperative air. They were pros, so they did the work, but their body language screamed protest. They saw Amara as a threat, an unqualified upstart who had somehow bewitched the CEO. They didn't see the years of her being the smartest person in the room and having to prove it 10 times over. They didn't see the nights she spent studying not just her own field, but theirs, anticipating their questions and preparing for their skepticism. Amara, for her part, was an island of calm in the storm. She fine-tuned the presentation, integrated the last-minute data, and rehearsed her talking points, her focus absolute. Alistair watched from his office, impressed by her grace under pressure. He knew the personal and professional risk he was taking. If this failed, the board would oust him before the investor's private jet had even cleared Swiss airspace. But if it succeeded, it would be the start of a new legacy. At precisely 2 p.m., the investors were led into the boardroom. They were exactly as Marcus had described, a trio of silver-haired, impeccably dressed men who radiated an aura of immense power and profound skepticism. Their names were Mr. Du Bois, Mr. Chan, and Mr. Al-Jamil. They had built and dismantled empires with a nod or a shake of the head. They took their seats, their faces impassive. Alistair made the initial introductions. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. We have something different for you today. Our presentation on the future of Althenia will be led by Ms. Amara Jenkins, from our Innovation Strategy Division. He didn't call her an intern. He gave her a title she had earned. Amara stepped forward. The room was silent. She could feel the weight of every eye, the crushing expectation. For a fleeting second, the voice of doubt whispered in her ear. They're right. You're just an intern. You don't belong here. Then she looked at the watch on her own wrist. It wasn't an Althenia. It was her grandfather's old, modest timepiece, the one he'd worn every day for 40 years at the factory where he worked. It was the watch that had sparked her fascination with the magic of gears and springs, the idea that human hands could capture time itself. It was her anchor. She smiled, a genuine, confident smile that seemed to surprise the investors. Gentlemen, she began, her voice resonating with a warmth and conviction that the executives' polished presentations always lacked. Before we talk about the future, I want to tell you a story about the past. She told them about her grandfather. She spoke of the pride he took in his watch, how it wasn't a status symbol, but a companion, a testament to a life of hard work and reliability. She connected the timeless, emotional value of a watch to the new values of the modern consumer. Then, she launched into the pitch. It was even better than the rehearsal. She was no longer just presenting data, she was telling a story. She painted a vivid picture of a new Althenia, a brand that honored its heritage while fearlessly embracing the future. She navigated their sharp, probing questions with an expertise that belied her age. When she got to the slide on the digital twin, Mr. Du Bois, the most formidable of the three, held up a hand. Ms. Jenkins. This is unconventional. Luxury is about scarcity. Exclusivity. You are proposing a digital gimmick that feels mass market. Marcus Thorne shot a triumphant, "I told you so" a glance at his colleagues. Amara didn't miss a beat. Mr. Du Bois, I understand your concern. But the definition of scarcity has evolved. For the next generation, true scarcity isn't just about a limited production run. It's about scarce experiences. It's about access. The NFT isn't the product, it's the key. It's the verifiable ticket to a club that no amount of money can buy you into without owning the watch. It creates a legacy that is digital and perpetual. Imagine passing down your Althenia Vanguard to your grandchild, and with it, a complete, unbroken, and verifiable history of its ownership and the community it was a part of. That is the new definition of heritage. Mr. Chin, who had been silent until now, leaned forward, a thoughtful expression on his face. And the sustainability angle? Is it genuine, or is it marketing? It's fundamental, Amara replied. Our research shows that 70% of Gen Z consumers state they are more likely to buy from a brand that commits to sustainable and ethical practices. We plan to pioneer the use of 100% recycled titanium and ethically sourced materials for all components, and to make our supply chain completely transparent via the blockchain. We won't just be selling a watch, we'll be selling a promise. The questions continued for another hour. They grilled her on financials, on market penetration strategy, on scalability. With every answer, Amara felt her confidence growing. She wasn't just reciting a script. She was defending a vision she believed in with every fiber of her being. Finally, Mr. Al-Jamil, who had a reputation for being a man of few words, closed his notebook. He looked at Alistair, then at Marcus, and then his gaze settled on Amara. We have seen a dozen pitches from legacy brands this year, he said, his voice a deep baritone. They all show us the same thing, declining charts and a fear of the future. They ask for money to do more of what is failing. You, he said, pointing a finger at Amara, have shown us a path forward. You have not just presented a product. You have presented a new philosophy. You have conviction. He stood up. Mr. Du Bois and Mr. Chun followed suit. You will have your $100 million, Mr. Al-Jamil declared. On one condition. Alistair held his breath. Ms. Jenkins will oversee the Vanguard initiative. We are not investing in your company's past. We are investing in its future. And she is it. The room was utterly, profoundly silent. Marcus Thorne's face was a mask of disbelief, his complexion turning a shade of pale gray that clashed horribly with his expensive suit. Amara felt a dizzying wave of emotion, shock, relief, and an overwhelming sense of vindication. She had done it. She hadn't just won the argument, she had won the war. Alistair Finch broke the silence with a broad, beaming smile. He walked over to Amara and, in front of the investors and his entire executive team, he extended his hand. Congratulations, Amara, he said, his voice thick with pride. Welcome to Althenia Horology. I believe the head of the Vanguard initiative is a title that suits you. As she shook his hand, the sunlight streaming through the window caught the face of her grandfather's old watch. It was a simple thing of steel and glass, but in that moment, it felt like the most valuable timepiece in the world. It was a reminder of where she came from and a promise of where she was going. The ticking no longer sounded like a countdown, but like the steady, powerful heartbeat of a new era. If you were inspired by Amara's journey, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about people who dare to change the world. Your support helps us continue to tell these important stories. Thank you for watching.